It's an act that maybe seems to defy some common sense, but it's happening anyway. Right now, more than 11,000 tons of this radioactive water are being dumped into the Pacific Ocean. Now, Japanese officials say it is the only viable solution to try to save those generators at the fragile Fukushima nuclear plant. Now, the desperate measure here comes after engineers failed over the weekend to plug this crack, leaking toxic water at the plant. That water has been pooling up. Storage tanks then are getting full. So workers there now have to clear the space out so they can now store water that is even more radioactive. Joining me now to make sense of all of this is Tim Jorgensen. He chairs the Radiation Safety Committee over at Georgetown University Medical Center. And Tim, I don't know if it's like the better of two evils here. You have one bit of water, some 11,500 tons of water that they're pouring into the ocean versus, I guess, the higher toxic, more contaminated water that's coming out of nuclear reactor number 2. Is that worrisome, though, at all, that they're putting any of this water in the ocean?
Well, they're in a tough situation because, as you say, this highly radioactive water they don't want to release unless they have to. So they're moving that to the containment facilities that are currently full and moving what's in the containment facility, which is relatively low radioactive waste, into the ocean. So it's about 10,000 tons, as you said. This is about the amount of water that's in 5 Olympic swimming pools. So, it's a considerable amount of water, but the immensity of the Pacific Ocean will quickly dilute this amount of water to harmless levels.
That was my next question. If you need to, allay any fears, both, people locally in Japan and also folks along the West Coast thinking, my gosh, could this come toward me? So you're saying not a huge risk?
No, not a huge risk. I mean, to put this in perspective, the Pacific Ocean holds about 300 trillion swimming pools full of water, okay? And they're going to release about 5 swimming pools full of water. So that, hopefully, the churning of the ocean and the currents will quickly disperse this so that it gets to very dilute concentrations relatively quickly.
Okay, let me get to the second point, which is what I mentioned over the weekend. So there's this huge concern that there's this leak somewhere within the number 2 reactor. So there's water, the higher radioactive water is leaking. And so to stem this leak, workers have been using concrete, sawdust, and newspaper to plug it. A, Tim, how effective has that been? And B, I mean, when you hear newspaper, are they grasping at straws there?
Yeah, they've gone beyond the playbook now, and they're doing anything they can. And I understand that those efforts were not successful at all. So I don't know what's in their. I don't know what their next game plan in terms of plugging the leak is, but this leak is filling up the tunnels and the trenches below the reactor, which is making it impossible for the workers to work in there and also threatening the electric power supply. So that's why it's vital that they pump this water out into the containment facilities that they have. That will buy them a lot of time to get this problem solved. Perhaps once the water is gone, they can go in with more conventional methods and fix that leak.
That perfectly segues that you mentioned the vital power supply, right? So then you have this other problem, and it feels like for a while there we weren't too worried about reactors 4, 5, and 6 because those were shut off before the quake. But now apparently the water in the turbine building's basements, that's threatening the water supply. And just to underscore your point, that's important because you need the power to keep those pools cool, the spent fuel rod pools cool. Right?
That's exactly right, and I understand that some water from those other reactors, which is much less radioactive than what's in reactor number 2, is also going to be released with the contained water in the waste treatment plant. So the total is going to be about 11,500 tons altogether. But again, this is relatively low level. What they're trying to do is mitigate the radioactivity loss by release by keeping it as low as possible, removing the low-level stuff first so that they have room for the higher-level stuff on site.
Final question. This is your area of expertise. You study this stuff. You've been following the story. Is there any sign of progress?
Progress. Well, I think the progress is they nearly need to keep these things cooled. And I think that they have restored the electrical power to that area. If they can keep these pumps going and keep the cooling generated, that will really help to alleviate the situation a lot. So I think there is some progress. It's going to be a slow going, but I think they are making some progress with this.
Some progress, they say, could be months and months there. Tim Jorgensen from Georgetown, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And now this.